Here we are, week 2 of Young Gun, a Carolina Panthers podcast about Bryce Young. I'm Demetri Ravanos. That is Lauren Brownlow. Lauren, we are in a bit of a different setting, and I'm going to take people behind the scenes here. We recorded an entire episode in our beautiful studios, only to find out that stupid me had the settings wrong, and we both sounded like we were at the bottom of a well.
It was amazing. It was legendary. Y'all just have to take our word for it, but we're gonna live up to that.
We will do our damnedest for sure. But I guess we've got to start, Lauren, with the question that we start with every week. Was Bryce too short this week?
Well, I guess not technically. I didn't see anything he had trouble reaching or seeing. You know, I did see him on his tippy toes again quite a bit because, like, now I can't unsee that. Now that Steven Ruiz pointed that out on Twitter, and we talked about that last week. Now that I have seen that, I see him on his tippy toes all the time now. And as a fellow short person, it is definitely short person habit to be on your tippy toes, even if you don't have to, which I don't love for his pocket mechanics, but I'm not exactly working the Peyton Manning passing academy, whatever. So it's fine.
I saw someone that texted me after our first episode that said, you know, if you search, there are plenty of pictures of like Josh Allen on his tippy toes as he is getting ready to throw. And I Googled, and I'll be honest, I couldn't find them, but I figured out exactly what it is they're talking about. They're not talking about getting ready to throw. They're talking about someone that recognizes I'm about to have to take off, right? Like Bryce is just in a starting position of on tippy toes.
Right.
It's very different.
Like as he's surveying the field, he's on tippy toes, even if there's nothing in front of him. And I'm like, buddy, no, you can see. Look straight at him. You got it.
As much as now, listen, I'll go into this more. I thought he looked like a strong, handsome, very tall boy this week, but at least one member of the New York Giants PR staff had some questions about how tall Bryce was this week.
How's this? I'm 5'9". So he this won't block him? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'm 5'9".
The knowing laugh from Bryce is A+, but slightly under it. And a solid A is the background voice saying, if you are 5'9", then 5'10" is huge.
I didn't even notice that. That's so funny. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm like, wait, this guy is up there acting like he's some expert on like tall people stuff. Right. Like, come on, man. I know. I think what he's trying to say is like, look, I'm 5'9". You can't be shorter than me.
Right.
Right. Like, so if you can see me, but I'm like, well, you can clearly see the mic's not blocking you. So I'm wondering if it's a bit of shade.
That's the
now
other
that
part.
I'm seeing it again.
So that's the other part too, right? Like if you know you're 5'9" and it is that far below you, why are you even asking this question?
How tall do you think he is? 5'5"?
I mean, I know that obviously because I'm so locked in on Bryce and you are so locked in on the Panthers, we probably have a skewed perspective, right? Like I would bet Browns fans or Oklahoma fans would tell us that, no, it was definitely Baker Mayfield that received the most of this kind of criticism. But I cannot remember it being so out of whack from what is real to what is the perception of short than we're seeing right now with Bryce Young.
No, I know. And we joke about it some, right? But it's almost like something like that happens and it just feeds on itself. It feels like a lot of it feels like jokes so far, a little bit, you know, but it was a legitimate thing people were talking about. I understand why it's a concern for some people, but that's never bothered me about him in terms of like a legitimately like give me pause situation. It's really never. I mean, look, Drew Brees used to tear the Panthers limb from limb. Okay.
Yeah.
He was a tiny man, is a tiny man. So
is literally not even an inch taller than Bryce Young.
Right. Yeah. So it's, trust me, I've seen what that man can do. I know height's not the secret here, so it's okay.
So I told you I thought that Bryce looked very tall and handsome and confident in this game. It was the first play, and I know that scramble only went for a yard. It is because he waited too long to take off, right? But Improv Bryce is the best Bryce, and it was very clear as he couldn't find a receiver open. his coverage was, or excuse me, his protection was starting to break down. It was clear he knew what he was going to do. He just waited too long to do it. I thought that was a really great way for him to start the game in terms of confidence building.
Yeah, you and I had slightly different interpretations of that play, and that's not me trying to like results base my analysis here at all. It was actually because I felt like he had a lane, like you said, like he needed to have taken off sooner, and I saw that he had some room, but he didn't see it either. He didn't see it quickly enough, or he didn't want to give up on whatever play he was trying to make down the, in the passing game. He didn't want to give up on that. And I think he waited a little bit too long to take off. And that was the hesitation was what worried me a little bit. And I wondered if he wasn't a little bit nervous, which like I would understand. Like he's a rookie playing in his second, he's in New York. Like I get it, but and it was his first or second play, I think is what
I think it was his first play.
Exactly. So like, I'm not here to beat him up about it. It's okay. But it did. Yeah, he looked a little nervous to me, but I didn't really see much of that after that play. I'll say that.
So we talk about his football intelligence a lot, right? And when you see a play like that happen, right? I'm gonna ask you, who does not inherently love Bryce, to sort of tell me if I'm crazy here. Do we get the impression that he is so football smart that he kind of might be a football dickhead? Like that, is it possible that he is so confident that he has seen this game slower and better than everybody else, that it's not a matter of thinking he can make a play, it's being confident that you cannot?
I mean, maybe. I don't know though. He doesn't strike me in general as like a line stepper. So I feel like to have that kind of mentality, you have to have a little bit of that in you. And I don't know that I've seen that yet, but who knows? Maybe we'll see more of that.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about, when we talk about, hey, he takes too long to take off, whether that was last year at Bama or, in the 2 preseason games that we've seen, it all comes down to one thing, that protection is breaking down. And Lauren, here's another. I was going to
say, in both cases, he didn't have long to make that decision. So.
Right. It's okay. So this week, more offensive line problems. They were not as egregious as they were in week 1. They were still bad, but they were not like, did you guys know you had a game?
Right. It was like, hey, did you know you're on the clock, guys? It's not. Yeah. No, for sure. I thought they were better overall. It obviously wasn't like groundbreaking or anything. They didn't do anything great, but they were semi-competent as opposed to abysmal. So I'll take that. And then they also, I thought, brought more help with like tight ends and running backs blocking as well, which I thought was good. They're clearly seeing a weakness or an issue that they're having as a coaching staff and dealing with it. It sounds like a simple adjustment, but like still, you like to see it made. We haven't always seen those being made. Those seemingly obvious adjustments for us fans at home haven't been being made the last couple of years. So it was nice to see that.
And the other thing too is, and look, we have been very clear about this, that both Lauren and I, we are not offensive line experts. We will happily tell you that we don't know what we don't know, but I do wonder if there is almost like a reverse senioritis thing going on here, where instead of, as we get closer to the end, this doesn't count, it is exactly the opposite. Like, oh, we'll take week 3 seriously, or we'll be a little bit more locked in for week 3, or we'll have it set by the start of the regular season. I will admit, I don't know how starters at any position in the NFL think about the preseason now that we're down to just 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know. And I think for me, it bothers me a little bit because it's like, wait, so do you want to see, whether it's the coaches or the players or whomever, what kind of product do you want to see on the field before the actual season starts? Whether that's like, assume no one was at your preseason game. Like, is this what you'd want to be putting out there for people to watch and evaluate your team based on, or like evaluate where guys are based on this, like these performances? I would hope not, especially offensively. I don't know what the good answer is to that, or if there is an answer really, but at the same time, it's like, it hasn't been good enough for sure.
Well, and so here's because you mentioned, imagine no one was at your preseason game. Even if people are, again, going back to that, now we live in a 3 preseason game world. Like, tell us if what you want to see is what you're seeing in those joint practices.
That's it. That's it. Like, we can't always see stuff, and like, we understand that, but at the same time, I guess there's enough media around that you can't just straight up lie to us. You could probably have to tell us some semblance of the truth. And then, it's just so hard because what we're seeing is what they want us to see, which is usually not something very good, seemingly, in the preseason, which, and yet we still sit here watching it week after week.
All right, let's have the very tough conversation. I'm not saying it's time to take him out behind the farmhouse and put him down mercifully, but Icky Ekwonu is a problem right now.
Yeah, like not the good kind.
Right,
he used to be the good kind.
I was about to say, not a problem for Kayvon Thibodeau, obviously. He is a problem for the man he's supposed to be protecting.
I mean, yeah, that sack. I mean, I genuinely, I think I tweeted afterwards, is Icky all right?
Yeah.
And I'm genuinely wondering that because I know guys go through a bit of a slump sometimes. I know you don't always live up to the season you had, like as a rookie, or especially if you ended your season well, it doesn't always translate over. I get it. But at the same time, like he was playing so well to end last season and all of a sudden he's just been bad 2 games in a row. Like one game you kind of go, okay, like it's fine and whatever. But to see it like that again, not as bad, again, to be fair, he was not as bad, but that sack he gave up to Thibodeau, it was almost like he did not know, like, I don't know if he was not supposed to be blocking him, but as we've talked about too, it's like, who was he supposed to be blocking then? Because he wasn't blocking anyone.
Yeah, so I texted you and said it looked like Icky had money on the Giants. Like that particular play, it looked like Icky had money on the Giants. And I have never done a job that is as important as protecting a multi-million-dollar investment, right? And for as much as we talk about a left tackle's job is to protect the quarterback's blindside, like I think all of us, if you care enough about football and this team to listen to a podcast like this, you recognize it's so much more than that, right? Like it's a matter of we can't do what we want to do if you don't do what you're supposed to do.
Right. Like no chance. Like you can't open up your offense. None of that. Like it has to work.
Demetri, the dad of 2 preteens that don't always use their brains, and Demetri, the grown-up version of the preteen that never used his brain, wants to forgive Icky for what was a brain fart. At the same time, you hit the nail on the head, Lauren. If he didn't think he was supposed to be blocking Kayvon Thibodeau, who did he think was?
Right. That was the thing.
Did he think it was Bryce's assignment?
Or who was he going to be blocking? Because he was not touching anyone. Right. And he barely got close enough to Thibodeau to lightly brush him. I think his uniform, they might have breezed past one another briskly. Like
I mean, listen, I will tell you this story. Yesterday, I told
you couldn't see him.
Yeah, yesterday I told my daughter to go put her clothes, take them from the washing machine and put them in the dryer, which she did, and did not turn on the dryer and told me she did not know she was supposed to do that too. That is very much sort of the vibe of that Icky Ekwonu play of letting Kayvon Thibodeau get
I gotta do a blocking stance.
Right, like I got in his way. What more? I
was like, dude, like that's why, and so I don't know. I mean, I'm just, sometimes you never know what's going on with guys, off the field too. Like they're real people with real lives. Like he could be dealing with stuff that's difficult right now, and maybe that's impacting him. And if so, I hope that it all kind of turns around for him genuinely, because that would be terrible. But you just never know the real reason. But it just feels very odd. And he doesn't have to explain himself. He's an adult. Like it's fine. We don't need an explanation. But I would certainly like to see this stop.
Okay, so I hear you, and I want to agree with you that he doesn't necessarily owe us an explanation, but he certainly owes his coaches and his quarterback an explanation for what is going on. And I wonder if there's a little bit of pressure that didn't exist last year from the standpoint of there were some very not serious people on that coaching staff last year, but
and look who you're protecting for now.
Well, okay, not only that, but look at how much, like, it is very clear how much that dude matters, because look at all of the coaches they brought in specifically to bring a rookie quarterback along. Like, you've got to feel a different level of pressure now.
Yes, I think that would certainly play a role too, and and then obviously the way he finished the season, I'm sure he figured like, I'm going to have a target on me, so to speak. And people are going to be wanting to come for me and be like studying me more, and it's not going to be as easy. maybe he's dealing with some of that. I have faith in him overall. I loved watching him at State so much. So when I'm expressing concern about him, I do it out of love. I'm not doing it out of trying to be mean. I have enjoyed watching him just lay dudes out for years. Yeah. So I want to see that again. I miss it, and I hope it'll be back. I don't see why it wouldn't be. Like, I've seen crazy things. But Panthers fans, that's the thing. We're always worried that our offensive linemen will suddenly become terrible. All we need is serviceable. We have very low standards.
Very
serviceable
true.
Will work, but all of a sudden a dude will turn into the worst offensive lineman on planet Earth in a very important football game. Like, it's happened more than once. It's not just the Super Bowl, even though that's what stands out. Like,
I don't have the deep love for Icky that you do. I don't dislike him at all. I just don't have the emotional connection to him. I do both love and also sort of, it makes me sad, the mental image of him sitting in front of his locker crying because he let Josh McCown down.
Oh.
So wow. You and I were texting back and forth about this, and I wanted to bring it to the podcast. And I think this is a good place to bring it because the offensive line may be the answer. Why are we not seeing Frank Riech let Bryce play football?
Well, it's interesting because I think both from a game plan perspective and from an actual snap perspective, right? Because I think either you brought it to me or I saw it somewhere or whatever, that like the game plan was basically he only got 2 series against the Giants because it was about the amount of snaps they were going to budget over 3 series, which was 14. And you know how many 3 plays is a 3 and out, y'all. So it's not much more than that. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah, for 3 series, 14 snaps, you basically allotted at least 1 3 and out, at least 1 first down followed by a 3 and out, and 1 somewhat sustained drive. Like, you clearly did not have a very high expectation level. And it makes me wonder, like, what is it in 2023 you want out of a rookie quarterback in the preseason?
And that's the thing. Like, if you want to, I think that what you would ideally like to see him do in the preseason is make a few plays, especially get like a highlight reel worthy player too, to where everybody that maybe isn't a Panthers aficionado, right, but's following along on like NFL Twitter can see it and be like, wow, there he is. There's Bryce Young making a play. Yeah. And I think like that's what you'd love to see. I mean, although Cam Newton had an abysmal preseason, if I remember correctly, so it's fine. Clearly, because his first game was amazing and his preseason had been terrible. So maybe that's the secret after all, is for him to have a horrible preseason, and then in game 1, all of a sudden they'll come out slinging the ball around. Except for you just look at the personnel they have to do that with. And you go, yeah, I don't, you don't see these guys getting separation. You constantly hear about it on the preseason game. Steve Smith talking about, this route, either the route wasn't run right or miscommunication. Sometimes we don't know about those, but then also like guys getting separation. If you can't get separation from a DB, if your receivers can't do that for you, it's very, very difficult to have a marginally competent offense in the NFL. Like you just can't.
So, along those lines, and I'm asking this genuinely, not to make fun of Panthers fans, not to make fun of Frank Riech at all. Do you think he looks at this lineup or this roster and says, oh, we're going to have a lot of 3 and outs this year? Because
yes,
you do.
Well, to me, that's kind of what the 14 plays was. Yeah. Like you're saying it without saying it a little bit.
That's interesting. I mean, like, I would not think of a coach going in and thinking that way, but like we know what the offensive line problems are, and you look at the skill positions and you don't really have a game breaker, so to speak. Like Miles Sanders had a nice season last year in Philadelphia, but I think some of that is brought on by the type of quarterback that Jalen Hurts is, and that's not the type of quarterback that Bryce Young is. So I don't know what to expect from this team.
No, and I mean, I think, people have been excited about Mingo, and I get it. I'm excited about Mingo as well. But what you don't get as excited about is when you realize he's been by far, I think, like, he's maybe the most impressive, most consistent, whatever you want to say, wide receiver in the preseason. That's what you don't want to have happening, because as good as he could potentially be, I don't think we've seen anything from him right now that screams NFL number 1. You know?
I agree with you. And I actually wrote this down watching the game is I think we are seeing the beginning of what could be a very productive partnership. I mean, I'm talking about like, and again, I'm
I
looking
agree.
at this through Bryce colored glasses, but I'm talking about like Marvin Harrison, Peyton Manning level. Like this could be the beginning of that, them coming in together and working all this out together. To get there though, like Bryce has to have an Adam Thielen right now. He has to have a DJ
For
Chark,
sure.
right? Because you got to have those veterans you can rely on that,
Yes.
you know, I think.
And listen, I mean, have we seen worse receiver groups in Panthers locker rooms even in the last 10 years? 100%. So I'm not putting them in some of those all-time worst receiver groups. It's just not a group that scares you.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I recognize we are a season or two away from knowing if I'm right about what my gut is on Mingo and Bryce, but they do seem to, they talk very highly of each other. They did from the second they both got drafted. Mingo, for people that don't know, Mingo played at Ole Miss, so they played each other every year. Both of them were in school together, and there is obviously respect there. I thought that first incompletion to Mingo was probably another miscommunication. Like it looked like Mingo thought he was supposed to break off that route when Bryce led him a little bit further. That could have been a huge play where I think more people would say, I see what you are saying.
Yeah, for sure. But and that was hard for me to tell. It looked like he threw it into traffic a little bit, which made me a little nervous, but because trying to kind of squeeze it in there. But you're right about like if he'd gone a little further, it would have been fine. But yeah, I mean, I just think like I'm a little nervous about the fact that he seems to be the most dynamic. You do want the vet guys there, and I get that, but I don't know. I think that against some of the better DBs in the league, this offense is really, really, really going to struggle to score points because teams will just stack up against the run, and that'll be that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that you are dead on there. Last week you said you want to love, not just Bryce, you want to love the Panthers again and be excited. I wonder, what is it for you? Can you identify any constants, I guess, in when you do love this team and your quarterback and when you are genuinely concerned and don't think you can watch anymore? What are the constants or the symptoms that you have seen when you feel that way?
I was going to say, sometimes I feel that way even when, the things that repel me are actually true of good teams, but no, I am like, the offense struggling the way it has. And when the Panthers have had some truly gross offenses just really horrendous offenses, full of bad quarterback play, bad receiver play, all of it.
I would argue, and you and I argued about this a lot when we were on the radio together the year they went to the Super Bowl. I would argue that offense was pretty gross to watch if you were not rooting for this team to win, because you were always watching it thinking like, do they just not like Cam? What's the deal? Somebody has to try for him at some point.
Well, but honestly, that's part of what lured me about Cam in the first place in terms of somebody that I loved watching, because watching him basically carry that Auburn team too, where like anyone played professional football after that. What he did and how he did it was just so impressive at Auburn. He got me hooked on watching him for sure. And, I mean, I don't know. It's just, you're right. It was the Cam offense. It was like Cam do something. And I worry for Bryce's sake that that's essentially what this is going to turn into. And he's just not that kind of quarterback, but few people are. Like there are not a lot of quarterbacks out there that you can give the ball to and go, please go do everything for us. Thanks.
I mean, it was Bryce was I'm sorry, not Bryce. Cam was a one of one. I think Lamar Jackson is as close as we have gotten since then.
That's who I would have put in the conversation.
And I would say, like, I think you might be able to put Josh Allen in that conversation, but we'll never know because he's got enough help.
Right, that's the thing. Like his weapons have improved and all of that. So, but yes, he's got that little edge to him too, and you can kind of see it that he's capable of that. But that's the thing. There aren't many quarterbacks who are. And I don't know. I don't see like a super efficient way around what they have offensively. And I don't know how great play calling, I don't know would help much at this point. They're going to have to be real creative. Let's just put it that way.
So, I've said this to you in private. I'm sure I said it on the show, on some show we have done together. Like, obviously, I love you dearly, right? From the bottom of my heart, you are a very, very important friend to me. My heart sank when you said you loved Cam at Auburn. Like,
I'm sorry.
I understand when he was a Panther, but I'm saying this because, like, I do wonder if it is easier to fall in love with a quarterback on the college level than on the NFL level, because in the back of your mind, it's going to get even better.
Yeah, I think so. I feel like there's something almost exciting about when a quarterback gets to college, because that's the first time I start paying attention to them.
Yeah, of course.
I'm not a recruit follower necessarily.
You're not a big underwear Olympics kind of person?
No, but sometimes I will watch like the preseason scrimmage and stuff and like look at the freshman quarterbacks and go, oh, I think that guy's you like to be the one to like call it almost.
Absolutely.
It's a fun game that I think sports fans probably do some in general. And I know fans of their own team probably do that as well. But for sure, sports media types do it. We all do it. We're like, oh, this dude, yeah, he's going to be really good. And then you can go around being like, I remember the first time I saw that kid, blah, 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 preseason camp, whatever. Like, it's that we love to do that stuff. And so, yeah, and you love to kind of watch a guy in college. And a lot of times they have a growth arc, which is so cool and like rewarding too, like as players, as people, whatever. It's just, yeah, you really fall in love with them at the college level. I think it really helps in that way.
It's fun. So like bringing this back to Bryce, it's so funny. You talk about like, you'll watch the scrimmage, you'll watch the spring game and see where the true freshmen stand out. Like, I have a friend from Bama that will tell you like, oh, I saw from day one of the spring game, Bryce was clearly the best quarterback on the field. And we all say, yeah, we all did. But Nick Saban has a little bit of a seniority thing that he cannot divorce himself from, that Mac Jones had earned the position. Like, nobody doubted what that kid was. And I think that explains some of the struggles. Like, this is the first time that I think Bryce might be doubting himself a little bit. And I bring this up because I want to play a piece of audio from you, or for you. Greg McElroy, who is going to ascend to the #2 college football booth for ESPN, obviously national championship quarterback at Alabama. If he wants to come to practice, they are going to let him come to practice, right? He also hosts the morning show on Jocks 94.5 in Birmingham. And last week he talked about visiting practice, and he said what we have been told is a 3-person race to replace Bryce Young between Jalen Milroe, Ty Simpson, and Tyler Buckner, who transferred from Notre Dame, is really just about Milroe and Simpson. Like, Buckner, it's nice to have someone that knows what Tommy Rees wants to do. He's not going to be your starter. There is a complicating factor, though, of a kid named Dylan Lonergan, who is one of 2 4-star quarterbacks that they brought in this season. And I just want to play you what he said about Lonergan.
Where's the 5-star?
Don't think I have not posted that very same sentence on message boards, Lauren.
Oh my God. So spoiled.
There is a part of me that because I believe he's a senior this year, is a kid named Julian Sayin, who I believe took over for Bryce when Bryce left Mater Day, who is now coming to Bama next year. And there's a part of me deep down that's like, it doesn't matter. Julian Sayin's coming to save us. But anyway, I want you to hear what he had to say about Dylan Lonergan. I'm going to make a couple of points off of this.
So Lonergan, even though most of his reps are coming with the 3s, he is getting to sprinkle some in with the 2s. Now, I've been told that he has had a really nice camp. They're very pleased with him. When he is going against top-level guys, meaning the 1s, the game's a little fast. But you shouldn't panic with that, because the game was a little fast early on with Tua Tagovailoa as well, which is why Tua Tagovailoa, as a true freshman, didn't play until the second half of the national championship game. I mean, 4 months from now, basically. But I was also told that Lonergan, in time, if he continues to play the way he's playing and continues to get comfortable within the system and continues to progress, it would not be completely out of the realm of possibility that we could see him in meaningful action this year. It is, but it will not be early.
So, number one, the issue with Jalen Milroe is, if we are going to go back to a ground and pound kind of Alabama offense, to me, it's a no-brainer. That's who you want back there, because he is a fucking jetpack, right? Like, that's the kind of quarterback you want in that offense. The problem is, Saban wants to throw the ball now more than he ever has before, and Milroe's not exactly accurate. When I was in school, if you told me that was the kind of quarterback we had, it was a no-brainer. Fine, we'll take the problems. We're so happy to have somebody that is at least that kind of athlete in the backfield. Look at how spoiled Bryce left this school.
I know. You guys are ridiculous. I mean, come on. Like, I guess kicker couldn't be the only position that you guys weren't as good at recruiting.
No,
all the time.
I mean, like for you, think about. I think Taylor Zarzer made this point on the broadcast on Friday night, where he was like, he named all these quarterbacks from Bama that had gone to the NFL, and it sort of dawned on him. You could hear it in real time. It dawning on him that between Kenny Stabler and Jalen Hurts, there was a whole lot of nothing, and then suddenly it's been every single quarterback makes it to the NFL out of Alabama. All right.
I mean, they're going to run into one that won't. Like, just get over it and cry about it.
Don't say that.
Be like everyone else.
Remember, like just moments ago, I told you I loved you and you were important to me, and now here you are attacking me this way.
Listen, I love you. This is tough love. That's what this is. Okay.
All right, here's the other thing I wanted to bring up. So, like I said, Lonergan is a 4-star recruit coming out, obviously high expectations for him. And you hear Greg McElroy say he can do all the stuff that you want a quarterback to do until you put him in with the ones. And when you put him in with the ones, it's very clear the next level up, he's just not there yet. Obviously, that's what we are seeing from Bryce, I think, a little bit. I think Bryce might be a little bit further along in that sense than Dylan Lonergan is, going from college to the pros versus high school to college. But either way, talent is great. Talent and confidence really is what is going to determine whether or not you are a success, whether or not you are ready. And as much confidence as I think Bryce is coming in with, I need the Panthers to stop screwing up his ability to gain more of it and actually lead this team to that next level.
Yeah, they've got to find a balance with the play calling 100%. They absolutely do, because this is just not, this isn't doing anyone any favors. Yeah. This is not what sells the tickets, folks, okay? No one wants to see you run into the line of scrimmage twice on a drive for a yard and fall forward and then punt. We just don't want to see that. Like, you have to at least threaten to score sometimes. And so I think that's just, they've got to figure out a way to get some. I really would love to see them play him until they score, except that you can't really do that because they might not. Like, let's be realistic. They might not. And I think that they want to protect him physically, which they've done a good job of showing that they at least intend to do that. Maybe they're doing that too much with the snaps. It's possible, but at the same time, I don't know what the correct balance is necessarily either, but I don't know why I would have any good feeling about anything the Panthers are going to do offensively going into game one if this is what we continue to see.
Correct me if I'm wrong. They've basically said that, like, what you have seen so far is what you are going to see from Bryce in game 3 too, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's what they've said. And so that means, I guess, about the same number of snaps. What is that? That's like 4.1 3-and-outs.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, it's frustrating because, I will acknowledge what I said earlier. I don't know what to expect of a rookie quarterback in a preseason that only includes 3 games, and maybe we're seeing so much more in those joint practices with the Jets that Frank Reich feels good about. I want to know. And it's not just because Bryce is my guy. It is also because this is the number 1 pick of the draft. This is the number 1 pick of the draft for what is, I guess you would call it, our hometown team. I mean, there's not a team in Raleigh, but I think you would say this is, look, one way or the other.
This is a Panthers town for sure.
Yeah, I mean, one way or the other, this is what I'm going to see on Sunday, whether I have a vested interest in the team or not. So I want their rookie quarterback to get a chance to shine.
And you know what? I think, like, if you can accept the offense is going to struggle as a fan, as I'm starting to slowly sink in for me, I think what you want then is back half of the season Panthers last year, in the sense that they always had fight in them. They always made it interesting and just kept hanging around in spite of everything. And that's what you want to see. You don't want to see your team go out there and look incompetent and get waxed by 30. Yeah. You want to see your guys keep fighting and kind of give you a reason to stay invested. And as long as I see that from them, that's so cliche. Like, as long as you guys try hard. But I mean, it does. You know what I mean? It does matter. It at least gives you a reason to feel optimistic moving forward, that, like, at least the guys have the right mindset. And so when they get better players, it will help.
It's weird, right? Because I I know we're not going to get first year Trevor Lawrence, where he just had an incompetent staff around him that was not setting him up for success. We know we're not getting that, but still, I don't know. Maybe it's because Reich is a more serious human being than Urban Meyer was. I do have higher expectations for him in year one.
Yeah, for sure. I do. I have more faith in them to figure something out. I just kind of wish that there was like something more clear out there that like, no, this is because I'm like, well, so wait, is this the game plan? Are you just being vanilla? Like, what are you gonna? I mean, I want to see like a flea flicker or something. The play one. Like, let's go. Show me what we're gonna be working. Let me see the fireworks you've been hiding this whole time, dude.
Call a play where it starts with Bryce rolling out, so that if he has to make the decision to run, he's already in a position to do that.
Yes, he's already on the move. I think that'll make him more comfortable. I would love to see that 100%. I would love to see a throw, that goes beyond the sticks. Those first down markers. I'd love to see one of those.
Okay, before we go, because we have not talked about the play. Bryce Young falling down, getting back up, and still. I think that was the incompletion to Mingo, right? I think that was on the same play.
I'm not sure.
Either way, it was really impressive of a young dude to not give up on the play when, if that's college, play's over when you fall down. But the other part is like, to me, I'm impressed that his offensive line let him down again, and he did not get frustrated by it. He just stood up and did whatever he could to keep it going.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he is used to, thankfully, at least he's somewhat used to being on the run from his Bama days. I mean, relatively speaking, the Bama O-line was a bit of a hot mess last season. So
yeah, for sure.
And we're just not used to seeing that. Like, to see Bama have an average offensive line is very jarring. But the Panthers are obviously, I would say, it would have probably been rated an average offensive line coming into the year, wouldn't you say, overall?
Yeah,
which is an improvement from bad.
Yeah, and for sure.
So,
I would say, too, for Panthers fans, and we'll wrap on this, for Panthers fans wanting some hope about Bryce behind this kind of offensive line, I would say go watch the 2021 Auburn game and last year's games against Texas and LSU. Like, he was mauled in those games and found ways to just not go down. And maybe it's not the same in the NFL, but he's shown he's capable of that.
Yeah, and I think that's because for sure one thing that you get a little concerned about too, because we've seen it happen to Panthers quarterbacks, plenty of other quarterbacks, right, where you get hit a lot and it just you're never the same. And I don't mean that from like a hit in the head standpoint. I mean that from like when you're getting the crap beat out of you as a quarterback, it changes your mental outlook.
You say those words, and I immediately think about David Carr. Like, I don't think 100%. We know whether or not he was ever a good quarterback because his brain was just.
I've never seen an O-line that bad, and like for its level of football at any level of football before or since. I don't think it was horrendous, and he was basically like lucky not to die half the time. So and he was like haunted, like he saw ghosts the rest of his career, and I think you see that sometimes. Bryce would have had every reason to start seeing ghosts last year. I don't think that he's seeing them. So good sign so far, but I just don't want them to break him because if any O-line historically can figure out a way to break a quarterback spirit, it's my Carolina Panthers.
I think the best message we can leave people with is Panthers offensive line. Please don't break him. Right?
Please handle with care.
That's right.
Would that help? Maybe we just needed to explicitly like lay it out.
That's right. While I'm not his biological father, he is my sweet tiny prince, and I do not want you to, you break him, you'll break my heart.